I was a Catholic. I was very much a staunch Catholic, and then at some point I left the church. I left Christianity altogether. Then I experimented with traditional African, or as you'd say, ATR, African traditional religion, which is Uhlaba, which is something we didn't do in my family, but I started doing
that.
We started slaughtering. I started going to Izinyanga, Izangoma, bathe with Umuti, Palaza, Taba, put something under your tongue when you're going to speak to people, or put things on your machine. All those things.
It's Ricky, and on this particular episode, I am sitting here today with leadership. Today, I wanted to talk to him, or I kind of like had to stop him just after they finished their recording of a podcast.
Yeah.
What is the name?
Let's Think About It podcast.
You're already on episode number 5.
5, yes. About this Jesus Christ that is presented in his holy book.
Yeah.
Why Jesus?
Yeah.
But I want to start by asking you, what is the good news of Jesus Christ? And why him?
The good news of Jesus Christ is here when Mthabela, that God became a man to first reveal himself.
Yeah.
Secondly, to solve the predicament of man.
Yeah.
To bring men to a living hope so that they will spend eternity with him.
And so when you guys go over to the channel, you're actually going to find a couple of episodes have already come in.
Yes.
Subscribe over there. Check it out. They are breaking down. How would you put it? How would you summarize?
I would say Let's Think About It podcast is a Christian podcast where we break down Christian doctrines, where we also conscientize other fellow Christians about what we believe as Christians, because we find that it is very possible for a Christian to believe, to be a believer, but not know the doctrine, not know what Christianity stands for. Just know that Christ died for us, but what are the doctrines that support the belief system that we call Christianity?
Okay, so it helps buff up the framework. It equips, basically, which is phones ring, you understand. The podcast direction is to help a Christian be conscious of what truly does he really believe, and to be able to speak of what he believes.
Yes, because my challenge when Anglebu has been that I noticed also with me that you go to church, the pastor speaks very well, speaks eloquently, and you give yourself to Christ. And then you come to church every Sunday, you try to read the Bible by yourself, but you don't really fully comprehend what the teachings are in the Bible. And then you find that years later, because of being going to church, I think I understand what Christianity is. Only to find when we are being challenged that actually I don't really think I know exactly what I stand for. Or because of the message that brought me to Christ, I think that's what Christianity is about. If maybe the pastor preaches about God will make you wealthy, I think that's what Christianity is about. I think I'm going to be rich now that I'm a Christian. And when I don't become rich, I get frustrated and then I leave because I never had roots,
what exactly
deeply
am I saying?
Rooted in the message of Christ. You see, it's very possible to be a Christian and to be on fire for God, but not have substance that keeps you grounded in the truth of the doctrine of the Bible.
So you'd say that it's very much necessary then for a Christian, once you are here, you're born again.
Yes.
Fine. But now you have a duty. It's actually it's not a maybe you should type of a thing. It's a you should. It's like it's a must.
You have to.
You have to pursue to understanding concerning what exactly.
Yes.
When you say you are saved, like
the
next episode they're uploading. When you say you are saved,
yeah.
From what?
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
You know, and all that kind of stuff. Like, can you articulate those particular conversations? Those are the things that you are dealing with. And who are you hosting the show with?
I am co-hosting the podcast with Ubaba Unhlanhla, who was also one of my lecturers when I was at Johannesburg Bible College.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
and so,
yeah.
And so the school class has now learned to progress.
Yeah. So he took his student to a podcast. Yeah.
Now, where did you see this? Like, for you to say, you know, you could be somewhere else right now.
Yeah.
You know, you have a huge schedule and whatnot. But then why was this like, okay, this is A on my list?
Yeah. I am personally concerned about the state of the church today. When you look at the church, the things that are happening in church, I find it worrying. Because some of the people doing despicable things in the church, are people who are really very well-meaning. But because of a lack of proper knowledge, we find ourselves doing despicable things. And it got very worrying for me to say, hey, you know what, let me teach myself further. You know, let me find more knowledge. Fortunately, I used to love books. Back then, I used to read what do they call this thing? New Age. I was very much into New Age. I still read a lot of motivational books because I don't think there's anything wrong with motivational books per se. The challenge for me begins when they begin to border on spiritism.
Okay.
Yeah, because it is possible to no longer just be dealing with the mind, dealing with the psyche of a person to a point where you see that now I'm beginning to border on spiritism. For example, they will teach you about meditation. Once you start meditation, depending on how you are meditating, it can begin to border on spiritism. Yoga, we say no, it's about stretching, but yoga is a religion. So I think when you
high sense of self, also those things, those ideas.
Yeah, you know, when you say things like send your vibrations to the universe, and the universe. What is the universe? Why aren't we praying to God? Why am I praying all of a sudden to the universe?
You did see this difficulty at some point where you yourself were challenged because you hadn't stretched yourself in knowing what to believe. Like, how far did you go? Like, okay, I hear the Eastern stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how far? I know you were into traditional thing,
Yeah.
and you mentioned Rasta sometimes. You gotta watch the channel. You gotta watch their channel.
Yeah. No, where I come from, where it all began for me. Yes, I grew up a Christian. I was a Catholic. I was very much a staunch Catholic, and then at some point I left the church. I left Christianity altogether. Then I experimented with traditional African, or as you'd say, ATR, African traditional religion, which is Uhlaba, which is something we didn't do in my family, but I started doing
that.
We started slaughtering. I started going to Izinyanga, Izangoma, bathe with Umuti, Palaza, Taba, you know, put something under your tongue when you're going to speak to people, or put things on your mashiyeni. You know, all those things. I've been there. I've done all of that.
Yeah.
So I think at some point for me, it all came crumbling down when I realized that it did not give me the solutions to life's deepest questions. So then I went back to Christianity. I started going to different churches. Before I went back to church, I went to different churches. I tried to go Rasta as well. It didn't work out for me. I went to many different churches that I don't want to mention. Because I don't want to bring them down. That's not the purpose of this conversation. But I started going to different religions, and then it didn't work out for me until I came back to Christianity. But when I came back with all the experience now of being disappointed by the world, of thinking my solution is out there, of sending my energy to the universe. And eventually I just decided, you know what? Let me just come back to Christ. But now when I came back intentional about my spiritual growth, intentional about reading more books until eventually I decided, okay, let's go to a college, because you can read books written by many different people. You don't know their agenda, why they wrote it, what background do they come from. So that's why then I decided to go to a Bible college.
When you came back, you had the baggage. How long do you think, like in short, how long do you think it took you to start
dropping the baggage? It took me very long,
baggage?
because ideologies and philosophies are not like an object that you can take and remove. But ideologies are like ideologies. They create your worldview, how you see life. So it took me very long for this book to begin to make sense.
Okay.
Because you can read the Bible and finish it and still not understand the doctrine of what the Bible is teaching. You can understand the stories. You see, the Bible is written in many books. It is possible to understand these books as silos in their individual manner and not understand the Bible overview, what they contribute to the entire story. So which is why for me it is important for people to study. Even Paul says, study to show yourself approved. You see, so it's very worrying for me when you hear people say things like, hey, don't go to a college, don't study. Paul says to Timothy, when you come, bring my books, but don't forget the scrolls, meaning the notebooks. Bring the books and the notebooks. Meaning Paul was also still reading. Luke was an educated man. You know, when the book starts, he says, Dear Theophilus, I am bringing you something that I followed people around. You know, it was scholarly what he wrote. And then you hear people say, don't study. Don't study and listen to who the pastor who is not himself is very questionable himself.
So this is where this particular podcast comes from. It comes from that angle of having seen what happens when you are too exposed when you are not too exposed to Christian doctrine and what exactly.
But be excited about Christ.
It's
very possible to be very excited about Christ, which is a good thing, but not be supported by good doctrine. You know, it's very possible to listen to Joel Umfundi's Esho. Now we must be driven by pushwa umoya and teach what the Bible is not teaching. Simply because you think that's what it's teaching when it's not.
So this is the angle that their podcast is going to be, and so do check it out. I would definitely review one particular other episode and when they do actually release. So this particular video, you will see a link down in the pinned comment. It will have the thingy. Go over there, subscribe, and as I stated, there's already 5 episodes already over there, so you have plenty to catch up on.
Do feast
upon and subscribe. Siriki Zarkshiali, the show with daily Christian commentary videos. When you are tired with your own ideas, remember Ikaya, remember home. Where home is where the Messiah is calling you. Siriki, we're done.